You're live. I am. I'm live and I'm cold. It's really cold out there. I don't know if it's cold where you are. It's freezing. Frigid cold. My nose is still red. It's cold. I rushed home from Trader Joe's to be here with you. I mean, I didn't really rush, but I did. I did just get back from Trader Joe's. Happy Tuesday. UK Wildcats are playing Miami. They're ranked, and I'm here with you. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're awesome tonight. I'm just going to go over 28 hilarious stories from funeral professionals. These are not my personal stories, but nonetheless, it's really funny to talk about. Hey, Joanne. It's funny to talk about the profession because it's a very serious one, but it's fun to hear lighthearted moments within it. So that's what we're going to do. And everybody can come in as they are, and we'll go from there. So the first one, again, these are stories that are submitted by people in the funeral profession, not by me, but I'm going to read them. It's going to be fun. I'm good. I hope you're awesome. So this one is titled A Not So Deceased Husband. I've had a reverend talk about the deceased woman finally being with her dead husband at the service, who is actually alive and well and in the front row of the service. It's stupid. When the funeral we were conducting decided to follow a hearse from another funeral, we had to chase them all the way to the church to retrieve them. That was ridiculous. You can't ever be too safe with these processions. They're very scary. I don't know if your state has laws pertaining to the funeral procession itself, but in Kentucky where we are, you have to have to be associated with the procession, have your brights on and hazards. Hazards definitely, not so many people do the brights as they should. And then also if you're coming on to traffic, like if you're coming up on a procession, then you are to stop, pull over. But, not everybody does that. Never in 4 lanes do you do that. Susan, hello. Don't ever in 4 lanes. If you're on 2 lanes on the opposite side and you have 2 lanes don't stop. You're going to get people locking up and you're going to have a massive wreck. I do recall one time, this is my story, where we're on the bypass or highway. The escort's driving, and this car never passed a procession in the left lane. Don't be an ass. They're most certainly doing that, and the law enforcement officer pulls over. Not only does this individual, they slow down at first, then they drive in the grass that separates the highway to get around. And the law enforcement officer, police officer's like, what the hell are you doing? They're like, I don't know. Obviously, you don't know what you're doing. You have no idea. I'm just reading stories. Another one is the circle of life. So at a funeral for a woman went into labor and gave birth to a child in the chapel. That's just beautiful, right? Hey, Julie, good to have you. It's ridiculous. It's hilarious. And then you have fist fight stories. I mean, you'd be surprised. Tons of people fight. It's how it works. People fight. Grief makes you bitter or it makes you better. And, I've seen brothers punch their sisters, and I've seen sisters punch their brothers, and I've seen people punch each other, strangers. It's just how it works. And then let's see here. That's funny. This one is a funeral director went to the wrong viewing and didn't know a single person, but they acted like they did because they knew what they were doing. They expressed their condolences, signed the guest book, and gave hugs. That's funny. I was giving on one of my videos. I was giving advice on if you're entering the funeral home, obviously have an idea of who you're there to see. You'd be surprised. People lock up. People are like, I don't know who I'm here for, and they forget the name. Well, it also makes sense because you're there to visit. If you're there to visit me, right? You're visiting me because my loved one died. You're going to know my name, but not my direct loved one. So, kind of have that in your pocket. Have that in your back pocket. Oh no. Your boss was caught at the funeral home in the crossfire of an angry grandmother throwing her walker. Little old ladies get really upset sometimes. You gotta watch out for them because they've lived their lives and they don't care who they offend. They're hungry. They're hungry. They're ready for food. They're ready for some answers. They're ready for service. They don't care whatsoever. This is hilarious. Lots of wrong procession stories. I was actually, before I was in the profession, not procession, my friend, we were at a friend's friend's father's funeral. Goodness. And we get in the procession, but we're late to get into it because he's being all hesitant, and we end up missing the cemetery. It's people don't want to offend to the point where they'll miss out. So get up in there. Did you know that the Hmong, Hmong, I think is how you spell it, they spend an entire weekend celebrating, and then they'll oftentimes sacrifice an animal. Pretty interesting. So I've never personally experienced that. Mistress at the funeral. This funeral director picked up the mistress in the limo instead of the widow. Oh no. I do know firsthand a personal story from a man who said he was driving the family limo, and there were, the middle seat, and then the passenger, and then the back middle, and then the back. So there was a woman in the front middle. He was driving the limo, and then the husband of the woman is to the right. And she has the audacity to put her hand on his leg on the inside of his upper thigh. So she was a pretty ballsy human. I do know one of the funeral homes in my area. This is very scary. They were in the procession to the cemetery, and the driver of the hearse had a medical episode and drives off of the road down the embankment. Didn't get hurt. The hearse wouldn't start. The loved one was in the casket in the back of the hearse. They had to wait, blocked all kinds of traffic for however long it took to get another hearse there, switch it out. Pallbearers had extra duty. I'll just say that. I did not see that personally, but I do know that it did happen. The man driving was none the wiser. He had no idea what happened because he had his blood sugar was low, and yeah. Ooh. Had a family member pull a pistol on me during arrangements because he thought the cost was too high on the casket that he had selected. I don't even know what to say in regards to that. It's like, you have the choice. Like, you literally have so many options to choose from. You choose this, and then you're like, you know what? I'm mad. I think I'm mad now. I'm going to let you know about it, and I'm going to pull out this weapon. Yeah, there's a few stories for you. I think that the profession, we celebrate people, and it's a lot of grief, and it's nice to kind of break it up and have a few lighthearted moments. If you can't find a reason to laugh, even when you're sad, then that's no fun. That's no fun. That would happen in Texas. Yeah, and I don't know where this was. This was submitted by Clay. Does Clay sound like a Texas name? Like Tyler for sure, but I don't know about a Clay. Nonetheless, there's some stories to lighten your mood. Hope you've had an awesome day. My day's been wild filming content, and it's really fun because we're coming up on I think we are December. Yeah. December 7th is whenever the Kentucky and so many other places had the tornadoes, if you all remember, a few years ago, and there were a lot of fatalities around Mayfield and Bowling Green and the areas just all around where I live. And there were quite a few right outside of Central City. There were, I believe, 9 or 10 deaths. That's a lot of deaths for that small community. And we had parked the big box truck. And this is a twofer because funeral homes, you only think about them whenever people die, right? But this is just a community outreach. We had have a big box truck that we parked in a Walmart, and I sent a message out on Facebook and said, hey, let's try to fill this. We were going to be parked there all day. Well, it was a 28-foot box truck, and it was filled within an hour and a half. So we emptied it. We took it to a drop off in an area that was hit heavily. We had babies' clothes, diapers, all of the items that would be necessary. And then we filled it a second time, and then a third time. We filled it 3 times. It was amazing. And I think that people call upon a funeral home in death, but it was really cool to have so many people in the community help us support people in life. So that was a really special thing. So we're coming up on that anniversary, and this is going to be another holiday without those that these people love, and probably something that you are experiencing too. Holidays are always tough for people, and it's something that you got to be gentle with yourself about, because life is tedious as it is, right? So I always try to think like positive things, and I speak to people in the positive, or in the present tense, not in the past tense. That's always helpful too. I'm not a therapist, so none of my statements are, health advice or mental health advice. They're just ideas. Oh no. I'm trying to pull one more thing up so I could share this with you, but bear with me just 1 minute. My notes. Not my handy dandy notebook. Hang on 1 second. Hello. There we go. My podcast, Dying Alone, the podcast about the coroners being outside today, it released this morning, and it got me thinking about the holidays and people that don't have. And you can feel the spirit in the air, right? Whether you celebrate Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas, or maybe you don't celebrate anything, and that's okay. But there is an undeniable spirit that is in the air, where people are a little bit more patient, a little bit more loving, a little bit more compassionate. And I was thinking about those who are without, right? And I took a bunch of notes about it, and I was just thinking about the stigma that's around being alone, not having anyone, and people have this fear of being alone. I do. You don't want to have no one at your death, on your deathbed. And then you have, if you remember the episode of the podcast called The Forgotten One, which is these people that somehow, some way, they lose touch with people. And the coroner's office in my community, if someone is not claimed at death, they become what's called an indigent. And then they do a rotation of funeral homes, because the weird thing about it, when I say weird, there's costs associated, right? You have costs for a funeral home to still carry out care, regardless if someone is an indigent or has much or little. And so to offset that cost, the coroner's office rotates funeral homes, and each funeral home probably cares. Unfortunately, the number is still too many, probably 10 loved ones each a year, that's just one little community. Think about that. But there are the communities, the coroner's offices will put toward an indigent cremation $500. That's all that they're able to do in our community. But the level of work that goes into that sometimes exceeds the level of work that goes into a direct cremation where there's no service, with a family that has family that selected direct cremation memorial kind of thing. You have to go to the courthouse, you have to go before the judge, and then you have to have all this paperwork signed, filled out. But you have to wait so many days. You have to show proof that you're trying to find loved ones. And then once that's signed, then you could carry it out. But there's still a lot of work. I mean, you're getting on Facebook, and you're getting on white pages and yellow pages with all the pages, and trying to play detective to catch these people and say, hey, you have a loved one. We actually found this person a loved one from New Mexico, I believe, or Arizona. They've been looking for him forever, and it was awesome to be able to reunite in death this family member to this individual who died. It's really, really sweet. But a lot of people that do die alone, they go through this rotation process. And after someone commented on one of my videos here on YouTube that California does twice a year burials. They're as reverent as they possibly can be, but if you have indigents, that they just do these massive burials for cremations. And so it makes you kind of grateful, really grateful, actually. So it creates a lot of perspective for you, and that's good. But it's getting better with technology to be able to find these people. It's awesome that these people that had or that wanted to lose ties with their family, or maybe they didn't think they had any, or you're able to track them down. It's really, really something. Did you know that nursing homes, whenever someone dies, a lot of the CNAs, nursing staff will go and open doors or the windows of their rooms? It's their way of, I guess, freeing. One of the CNAs said that it's a spiritual thing, which I thought was really interesting because I had noticed it numerous times before, and then I finally asked one of the CNAs, I was like, why is the window open? They said, oh, we do it for every loved one that dies. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Did I talk about Henrietta? Yeah, I did. The first female funeral director and funeral home owner. That was an African American in 1858. I thought that was so cool. I'm like really stuck on that. And then I was researching what they did, and I think the video released today because I did a video on it on the Titanic and how people were cared for. Whenever they were recovering them, they would pull loved ones from the water that they could retrieve, and they assigned a number. So number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. And that would also go alongside with if there was a wallet in their pocket or something, they would put that in a bag, and that number of the bag would be the same number of the loved one. So those loved ones, if they were known to be first class citizens of the ship, first class, they'd be embalmed and placed in a wooden coffin. Second class citizens were embalmed and wrapped in a canvas. Third class, they did massive burials at sea. Now this was if they were known. If it was unknown, they would be embalmed and they were all taken to Halifax. So Halifax had a curling, like the curling ice rink. And they put the loved ones that were in the coffins and wrapped that were embalmed on the ice. And they were literally on ice. Families, people were coming into Halifax to identify the first and second class passengers. The third class passengers were buried at sea. They were buried sometimes like 3 at a time, but 30 at a time as a whole. They were dropping by threes. They had a minister there. And then in Halifax, the loved ones that were claimed were shipped via train to their homes to be buried. Or if they weren't claimed, then they were buried in a mass grave. Yeah. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We told my dad, your wife is coming, and apologized profusely because she was a chatterbox and never let him get a word in. Interesting. Are you saying that your wife is your mother is a chatter? I don't understand that. I'm trying to understand it. Maybe I'm just being dumb. Sorry. I'm trying. There are a bunch of insert that reminds me, actually, not because that is, but it reminds me of a bunch of insert foot and mouth moments. And I remember we went to a loved one's residence one time, and I don't even want to tell that story. That story's embarrassing. I'm not telling that story. Harlow's great. Thank you for asking. Yeah, Harlow's awesome. So Yeah, sometimes, when I was a little kid, my mom always said, Nathan, sometimes you just don't have to tell all of that. So I'll just tell everything. I was like, yeah, here you go. It's awesome. I know, right? It's hilarious. It's fine. It's totally fine. She was. Got it. Got it. I'm following you. I'm following you. Today I took my record. For those of you who have this is my limited edition, but it's really cool. I'm really proud of this. We only have a few hundred left, but this is a Gentleman's Closure. It was released in 2007, and then we re-released it, remastered it on vinyl, limited run, and I took 3 copies today to people who are a part of this project, and it was really awesome because they were able to hold it, open it, and it was cool to see their faces. So I was really proud of that. So I mailed out a bunch of these too the other day because I said, hey, 25% off. Still 25% off. They'll probably sell out by the end of that. I could not do that again if I tried. I just flung that and it's barely hanging. Yes, you can. If you have your loved one's cremated remains, you can call them in advance, and yes, let them know that you would like to purchase a keepsake, and they'll even transfer the cremated remains, a portion of. Yep, great question. It's funny because it reminds me of there are people that'll write to me on some of these platforms, which, by the way, I'm starting this weekly series where I just pick randomly. I keep everything that's positive that I find as far as comments, messages. I screenshot them and I put them in a folder on my phone because, the noise of negative can be so much louder sometimes, which is stupid. And I don't know why people allow themselves to expose themselves. Stay out of the comments. But overlooking the negative, I like to keep track of the positive, but I like sharing them. So I'm going to start doing this weekly series. But where was I going with this? Oh, in the comments, sometimes people will say funeral homes are just money hungry people, and it's really humorous to me. It wasn't Brent. No, it's humorous to me because the only reason that people for hundreds of years, the funeral directors, it had been the same since Abraham Lincoln was taken up and down the train tracks, right? And then it was, hey, we're going to come and care for your loved one, embalm them at your residence, help and repose them at your residence, and we'll be out of your way. And then it was like, hey, actually, can you take my loved one back to the funeral home, put them in a coffin or casket that was made by cabinet makers? Oh, we want flowers. Oh, we want keepsakes. Oh, we want this, we want that. So all those things, because consumers wanted them, requested them, they were offered. And so, of course, things are going to add up because all the requests that you, generally speaking, have now a price tag to them. So it's interesting that the profession that is so selfless that it's creating what's being requested, and yet now it's like, how dare you? What? Anyway, that's how it's kind of happened, right? The profession has had this whole, like, if it's legal, if it's ethical, we're gonna offer it for you. And along the way, things have just gotten more expensive thanks to COVID and life and inflation, the good old inflation. But I promise you, funeral professionals and funeral homes, they have nothing to do with it. Inflation, I promise they don't. They're out. Sorry, that was probably really loud. They're out so much money to care for your loved one, and things cost money. So I just wanted to paint a different picture for a lot of it's. Another one is that funeral directors are like weird. Everyone, let's be very honest. Everyone here, we're all a bunch of weirdos. Everyone's weird in some way. Julie, thank you very much. I'm honored. Yeah, being trusted is a very special thing, right? Because it's like arguably one of the first calls that some family members make, right? So yeah, how do you avoid getting taken advantage of? It's costs are fixed, such as service costs, and service costs vary based upon the funeral home in which are carrying out services, but they have to be transparent about their pricing. And pricing it's pretty comparable across the board. Now, that's arguable. I understand some things could be $100 here, $200 less there, but it evens out in the long run for the most part. So it's what you want. That's how you don't get taken advantage of. Just if you want a casket that's brown, then there's the brown casket. So that's how you don't get taken advantage of. You don't need everything at once. You can purchase a keepsake later. You can purchase a monument later. You could buy a casket in the link, I believe, on my page, and save 50%, and you don't have to buy a casket from a funeral home. You could buy it online from that link, things like that. I don't know about add-ons. I mean, add-ons would be your control. Those are called cash advance items, third-party items like flowers. And I mean, if you don't want flowers, you don't have to have flowers. And that's what a funeral director should be able to tell you. You don't need flowers if you don't want them, or you don't need what it's always really funny to me, this the lamination. The lamination, oh my gosh. The bookmark, I love them. I think they're so like old school, and it's like the loved one's picture, their obituary, or the prayer or poem that the family selected, and it's laminated, and it's like $8 or whatever. You're like, are you serious? Are you serious? I'll just use one of my Scholastic Book Fair bookmarks from forever ago. I'm only laughing because funeral homes are pretty, overall, for the most part, very traditional, and they've offered the same thing for forever and always, and it's kind of funny to me. Like the register book. The register book. It's not like you're going to put it on a coffee table and be like, look who came to my mother, father's, loved one's funeral. Your mother's urn was $400, and the director tried to argue with him that it was $900. Did they not have it properly priced, I guess? I don't know. The price it's listed at is the price that it is, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting because funeral homes are run by incredible people. But it's one of those professions where, and this is my opinion, I'll preface it, that I don't believe that you even have to be remotely good at business or have any type of business savvy to be successful, meaning keep the doors open, keep people calling, because everybody's going to keep dying. And if you're in a small community and everybody and their mom has always used your funeral home, and if you keep doing a good service, they're going to keep calling you. You don't have to have any business savvy. Like, I know old-timer funeral home owners that don't even know how to read a balance sheet. It's crazy. Like a profit and loss statement, because a funeral home is a business. It absolutely is. You have credits, you have debits, you have payables, you have receivables, you get it. But it's arguably one of the only professions I know where you don't have to know a damn thing about business, and you're like, well, we had a good year. What did you do? No, I just answered the phone, took care of people. Okay. Anyway, I went on a little off the rails on that one. Anyway, I wanted to hop on here tonight. It's always fun to just share some insight, and I hope that you find some value from it. And you're paying for the name, so you're looking for a little less. I mean, there are premier providers, just like you have a Motel 6 or Motel 8, you have a Holiday Inn Express. You have a Four Seasons. I mean, you have options. That's the great thing about it. And there are premier providers. There really are. And you do get what you pay for. Not to say that even the most affordable, the value brand, if you will, funeral homes, they really have those. Won't give a good service, but you are you get 2 options or 4 options, and that's all you get, right? So it's very interesting. It's a very delicate walk. The funeral profession, talking about finances, talking about money, talking about anything in regards to a dollar and a cent is very delicate. So yeah, you have decisions, or you have choices, and that's great. And Shannon, yes, before I get off here, the Costco caskets are Titan caskets that I'm partnered with. And you can save 50% via the link, my link, and you can buy a casket. You can pre-arrange your casket. Like, all you young pups can buy your casket now and they'll hold it. It's real. So, yeah, it's good to educate yourself. Educated people what? Make educated decisions. That's a fact. So I love this profession. I love the people that are a part of it. I love what it's inspired for me in the music. And speaking of, please go stream the songs wherever you stream your music. Listen to the podcast. Share them both. And I appreciate that. I really do. It really helps whenever you all send a text with the link and say, hey, listen to Nathan, or hey, here's the podcast, listen to Nathan. So I am going to go and eat dinner now because I'm hungry. I went to Trader Joe's and I rushed here for you all. They didn't even have tomato soup. I'll see y'all soon, all right?